I have a theory, and I think it's part of why I was pretty wrong on Scotty Barnes. Um, I thought he was like super. I didn't think he would be this level of guy, especially this early. And I think something that myself and many others may have missed is that role versatility and excellence in those roles at younger levels. I think is potentially a predictor of of some sort of unsuspected development or prospect goodness. And we're gonna look through Scotty Barnes's kind of different roles throughout his college, his recent-ish career. I think back to his, last EYBL season where he was like the primary initiator with Knight Riders. Like he was the guy attacking off the dribble, creating with his strength, initiating and finishing possessions from the perimeter, like using his handle and his strength and some of like the length and footwork to score. He was really able to just like manhandle these like high school level defenders with his grown man body, the length, the skill, the touch, the just the his general ability to be big and dribble enough, and then like real bigs extremely struggled to keep Scotty in front of them, and he was also a guy who would like take pull up threes even though like he wasn't the greatest at them. But like this was a guy who was shooting, making high level passes, which was always the thing with Scotty is that he's one of the like best passers in the world at his height and his age. But yeah, I mean he was a high volume guy. He took like a lot of shots in a lot of these games, and he wasn't super efficient, but like impressive to see a guy with his level of size and intelligence take on that kind of role, which is like which is the exact opposite to the role he had at Montverde with Cade and Moody and Caleb Houston and Dage and Dayron, that like unbelievable 2020 team where he was like a complimentary big through and through, like guy who like really was dominant on like the offensive glass, who would like make extra passes in transition. This is more of like the like quote Draymond for kind of role, running DHOs, making passes and scoring out of the post. Like this is what he was doing. He was getting advantages created often by other people, and just kind of operating and facilitating and playing a pretty minimized role next to all of these other stars. Like he like the impressive passing flashes were of course still present, but they just came in a very different way, where it was again like out of a stationary post up or like off of a short roll, and again there was some of this like wonky kind of scoring stuff, like little like push floater stuff, but his role was like completely opposite. And again, I think it makes sense that guys who get a bunch of different reps in a bunch of different environments in a bunch of different roles across different levels and competition levels can be guys who develop unexpectedly, who are have shown the ability to adapt on the fly and to change and to evolve their games even in limited settings. Like I think that could be an indicator for guys developing more in the future. But he went to Florida State, and his role changed again to definitely like his weirdest role. Honestly, like kind of like a combination ish, like where he was handling the ball on the perimeter a lot more. He was driving a lot more, like initiating more offense, but he was still kind of more of a passer, like finisher guy. Like he wasn't taking as many shots. And I think this is the role where his passing probably shines the most. But again, he was like still doing his little like touch push shots in the paint, which he wasn't as great at in college. I think like the length definitely gave him problems, and his touch isn't exceptional. But he was able to convert these shots as well, and kind of make plays off the dribble as like the primary initiator. Like I said, like his ability to use his height to make plays off the dribble for himself and his teammates. And again, you see that like awesome complementary passing after an offensive rebound. This is like one of my favorite passes. Just like the audacity, like to get it around three defenders and get it over them. Like that stuff is so sick, especially for Scotty, who is like so good. Again, we have Scotty running pick and roll. And instead of brooding through a defender like he may have at EYBL level, he's patient. He uses jail and he finds a lob. This is like very very good advanced stuff. But there were also moments where like it was clear that a lot of like the old on ball UIBL stuff just wasn't working. Like he simply wasn't quick enough or strong enough or agile with his handle enough to get around or through. Like he's pretty easily stonewalled by college level guard defenders, and just generally doesn't look very confident with his handle. Doesn't look very confident creating separation, and often isn't finishing plays when he gets there as well. Like these were not easy shots he was getting, and he was not getting 2 feet in deep paint very often like he did in EYBL, which were real concerns, I think. And the reason that myself and many others got pretty low on him, what does he do on offense if he is, like a 6'8" 4 who isn't really good on the ball as a creator and who isn't really a shooter? Again, I mean, Scottie was like only shooting like 2, 3, 4 threes per 100. He's not converting them. The free throw is, quite bad. He's like taking like a good but not like exceptional volume of long twos. Like none of this was really foreboding well for like any kind of intriguing on-ball scoring profile. So if that wasn't the case, I think I was just overly confused about how he would fit on offense and add value on offense without imagining him as like a guy who could really develop. And there were signs, like I've talked about and I'll keep talking about, that like length is a scoring tool, and especially when you have the intelligence to weaponize that length functionally like Scottie does, you can do things where even though like there's no separation created off the dribble, he can like use a little head fake to freeze this defender, and he can use his long strides and long arms to finish at full extension right here, full extension, which was something he did pretty regularly. And then he got to the NBA, and this shit went out the fucking window. Like, yes, the separation kind of issues were still there, and I do think that's still like a genuine issue for Scottie against higher level defenders as an on-ball guy. But the shots just went in. Like he was awesome from that little like mid post kind of area, where he was so able to like just bully the hell out of smaller guys. Like Dinwiddie's not a small dude, but like Scottie is just went to work on these like switches in the post, hitting mid-range jumpers, like the same little push hook shots that we saw from Scottie as well. And he just like was a guy who was a mismatch 4 beating up smalls, which is so crazy considering that this same player was built as like a small ball, like passing connector Draymond type 4. And this is like totally unprecedented stuff for Scottie. This is another example of like the length scoring tool. Like he doesn't get very high off the ground at all. Like watch his feet. Like he doesn't get high off the ground at all, but like he's so long and is able to smash that dunk in, and it looks very nice and aesthetic. The stuff with him blowing by bigs off the dribble is definitely still a thing, like it was in UIBL, which again I wasn't sure if it would be based on his college stuff, but like someone like Mo Bamba, who's just like not very quick laterally, like you can't back up ISO like that. You are going to get crapped on. But there is like a little bit of the connector stuff. I'd love to see Scottie like explore this more. Like the Raptors aren't really like a pick and roll heavy team, but I think like a real connected passing guy, like focus guy, could be really useful. And obviously, aside from the passing, Scottie is someone who has the finishing craft and touch, which is like apparently much better than it has been for most of his pre-NBA career. To be a guy who can also score in the short roll, which is so critical. But yeah, I think like there's probably still more for Scottie, the NBA player. Like I think the main thing would probably be like extending out to 3 more on the ball. Is probably like where I would imagine the scoring going, because he's already like killing it from like 0 to 3 feet. Like he is unbelievable in that little like short mid range, or like short mid range long, like the floater range. He is so sick there. But again, doesn't make a lot of his threes, doesn't take a lot of threes. I mean, but just generally, that's I think probably the most the biggest avenue improvement, along with some of the passing and decision making stuff, which is it's just so weird. Like this is the stuff we thought he'd be amazing at, but he was a little behind. But I definitely think stardom is upon us, and I think we can see more stuff like this as he like adapts to the NBA and can drive in more complex ways. But yeah, role versatility at the NBA level, very very important, I think. Also probably like one of the reasons I miss on a guy like Halliburton, who like was awesome in like a super ancillary connector, hyper connector role, and a pretty on ball role at Iowa State. But yeah, if there are any other examples of this you can think of, I'd love to know because I don't know, it sounds cool at least.